Bible Space Time. 7 seals and 7 trumpets. 7 churches.
I, John, who also am your brother and companion in tribulation and in the kingdom and patience of Jesus Christ, was in the isle that is called Patmos, for the word of God and for the testimony of Jesus Christ. I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and heard behind me a great voice, as of a trumpet, saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. And what thou sharest, write in a book, and send it unto the 7 churches which are in Asia, unto Ephesus, and unto Smyrna, and unto Pergamos, and unto Thyatira, and unto Sardis, and unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea. Revelation chapter 1 verses 9 to 11.
John was on the island of Patmos when he received this vision. According to the rules of prophecy found in Daniel and Revelation, the time that the revelator received a vision will be the start time of the vision. So the time of the vision of the 7 churches should begin from the time of John.
Write the things which thou hast seen, and the things which are, and the things which shall be hereafter, the mystery of the 7 stars which thou sawest in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 candlesticks which thou sawest are the 7 churches. Revelation chapter 1 verses 19 to 20.
What he saw here were 7 stars and 7 candlesticks. The 7 stars represent the messengers of the 7 churches, and the 7 candlesticks represent the 7 churches. So, the things which are and the things which shall be hereafter, are what will happen in the 7 churches, in a period of time, from the time when John received the vision, and to the time of Jesus' second coming.
After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven, and the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet talking with me, which said, Come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter. And immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone, and there was a rainbow round about the throne, in sight like unto an emerald. And round about the throne were 24 seats, and upon the seats I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white raiment, and they had on the heads crowns of gold. Revelation chapter 4 verses 1 to 4.
But when John received the vision concerning the 7 seals, he was in heaven, in the throne of God. John was not under the time of the earth, but in the space of heavenly time, so the start time of this vision should not be decided by John's earthly time.
The first seal.
And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were the noise of thunder, one of the 4 beasts saying, Come and see. And I saw, and behold a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering, and to conquer. Revelation chapter 6 verses 1 to 2.
Some theologians interpreted the white horse as the works of the early Christian church, during the time of John, and the color change of the following horses as the church becoming corrupted. But the persecuting power mentioned in the first 4 seals, and the people who were persecuted in the 5th seal, cannot be the same God's people. So these horses, regardless of their color, cannot represent the God's people. They simply symbolize an army. The bow symbolizes a war, and the crown shows that he is a king, and the king won many victories in the conquest.
The prophecies of Revelation and Daniel are closely connected.
The prophecy of the Daniel chapter 11 started from the time of the Greek Empire, and continued until the time of Tiberius of the Roman Empire, and it skipped over several hundred years to the time of the Frank Empire. The time of Emperor Tiberius' death was not significant in history, except it was close to the time of Jesus' death on the cross, so the sudden gap in the middle of the prophecy could be a clue to find the start time of the 7 seals.
The place John received the vision.
The both visions, the 7 churches and the 7 seals, were originated from the same place, the sanctuary in heaven, but the places John was when he received these visions were different, first vision on the earth and the other in heaven, so we can see that there must be a special purpose on this difference, and that is to let us realize that the start times of these 2 visions should be different. The time of the first church starts from the current time period of John, and the time of the first seal should start after his death. The book of Revelation was written in the years between 64 and 70, during the time of the Emperor Nero, so the start time of the first church should be before the year 64, and the start time of the first seal should be at least after the year 70, or around the year 100, the year John died.
What happened after the Emperor Tiberius?
The next emperor after Tiberius was Caligula. He was considered as an insane king, and was assassinated just like Tiberius. and the next was Claudius, and he was also assassinated by his wife. And the next was the notorious king, Nero. Historians call these years, from Augustus to Nero, as the Julio-Claudian dynasty, and the next was the year of the 4 emperors and Flavian dynasty, between 68 and 96 AD. And during the Flavian dynasty, the reign of Titus was struck by multiple natural disasters, the most severe of which was the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79, which is well known as the last days of Pompeii. 1 year later, Rome was struck by fire and a plague. On the military front, the Flavian dynasty witnessed the siege and destruction of Jerusalem by Titus in 70. But from the Nerva-Antonine dynasty, from 96 to 192 AD, Rome became stable and powerful, and the Emperor Trajan presided over the greatest military expansion in Roman history, leading the empire to attain its maximum territorial extent by the time of his death. The history calls these years as the year of the 5 good emperors. Therefore we can see that the historical period, which started around 100 AD and correspond with the description of the first seal, is the time of the Nerva-Antonine dynasty, from 96 AD to 192 AD.
The second seal.
And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, Come and see. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. Revelation chapter 6 verses 3 to 4.
During the Nerva-Antonine dynasty, Rome achieved peace and prosperity in the Mediterranean region, and was able to maintain large territory. But during the year of the 5 emperors, from 193 AD, Rome began to be engulfed by wars. And between the years 235 and 285, the years of the crisis of the 3rd century, wars and civil conflicts hit Rome, and from 249 into 262, a pandemic, the plague of Cyprian, and the economic depression afflicted the entire Roman Empire. Therefore the time period for the second seal should be the years between 193 and 285. Taking peace from the earth and killing one another refer to the civil wars that broke the peace in Mediterranean region. The Great Sword refers to the wars and the pandemic that Rome suffered.
The third seal.
And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. Revelation chapter 6 verses 5 to 6.
1 denarius during the Roman Empire was a day's wages. A measure of wheat and 3 measures of barley are the amount of food that needed for a person, per day. So it looks like there was a famine, but it is said that thou hurt not the oil and the wine. The famine was not global and only the grain production was affected, leaving the oil and the wine production intact. Some people believe that the oil and the wine are simply spiritual terms symbolizing God's people, but the Bible has never suggested that these terms could be used as symbolic terms. When the Bible uses certain word as a symbol, such as water or earth, they should be used systematically in the entire Bible prophecies. But in the Bible, oil and wine are only used as a figure of speech in a metaphoric expression, not as prophetic symbolic terms.
There is another case of famine foretold in the 4th seal. So we can see that the problem of the grain production in the 3rd seal was not due to a common factor of famine, such as drought or flood.
Then what caused the decline in grain production at the end of the Roman Empire? You can find it in the record of the climate change during the time. There was a period of unusually warm weather in Europe in the North Atlantic that ran from approximately 250 BC to AD 400. The Roman conquest coincided with something called the Roman Warm Period. Warmer than average temperatures in northwest Europe during this time tempted the Mediterranean-based conquerors to introduce southern European cash crops into regions that had previously been too cold. Cash crops were immediately of high value and local intercropping was abolished in many areas. Then, around 300 AD the warm period ended. The cash crops and the local economy crashed. A recent research suggests that the collapse of Rome was due in part to introducing unsustainable cash crops economies. That was suddenly ended by the end of the global warming in Europe, and the oil and the wine production was not damaged by the weather change, because cultivation of olive trees and grapevines do not need warm climate. Therefore the time period for the 3rd seal should be between the years 300 to 400.
The 4th seal.
And when he had opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th beast say, Come and see. And I looked, and behold a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. Revelation chapter 6 verses 7 to 8.
Famine.
The killing by sword means wars, and the death by hunger indicates famine. The greatest famine recorded after 400 was the Great Famine from 1315 and 1317. It was the first of a series of large-scale crises that struck Europe early in the 14th century. Most of Europe, extending east to Russia and south to Italy, was affected. The famine caused millions of deaths over an extended number of years, and marked a clear end to the period of growth and prosperity, from the 11th to the 13th centuries.
Death.
The expression, killing with death, is unusual because the word death is the result of killing, not the cause or a way of killing, and this expression should not be considered as a figurative speech, simply describing death by war, because the killing by sword is already mentioned. There should be a large scale of death by something called death, around the time of the Great Famine, and we can actually find the killing power called death in 14th century, that is the Black Death, which swept over entire Europe between 1347 and 1351, and killed 30 to 60% of Europe's total population.
The sword and the beast.
Sword means wars, and the wars will be started with the beast of the earth. The large-scale wars that happened around that time was the Crusades. There were 9 Crusades from 1095 to 1272. These were fought for a variety of reasons, including the suppression of paganism and heresy, the resolution of conflict among rival Roman Catholic groups, or for political and territorial advantage. Because the main force that started the Crusades was the Roman Catholic Church recruiting armies from the 10 Horns, which mentioned in the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation, it was described as with the beasts of the earth. Therefore the period of the fourth seals is between 1095 and 1351.
The time gap from 400 and 1095.
It looks like there is a time gap between 400 and 1095, but it is to be filled by the first 4 trumpets of the 7 trumpets, and the time from 476 to 1095 is already occupied with the events of Daniel chapter 11.
The fifth seal.
And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God, and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And white robes were given unto every one of them. And it was said unto them, that they should rest yet for a little season, until the fellow servants also and their brethren, that should be killed as they were, should be fulfilled. Revelation chapter 6 verses 9 to 11.
Because the fifth seal is talking about the last phase of the persecution, the time of the fifth seal belonged to the latter part of the 1260 years. The interesting thing about the seal is that it is not mentioning any horses, so it is sure that horse do not symbolize God's people. The time period of the fifth seal spans from the end of the 15th century until 1755, the year of the Lisbon earthquake.
The sixth seal.
And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and, lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs, when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, Fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Revelation chapter 6 verses 12 to 17.
Just before the end of the 2300 years of the prophetic time, God sent the signs of the end time, through earthquake, the sun, and the moon. In November 11, 1755 the Lisbon Great Earthquake has occurred, and there has been a dark day in May 19, 1780 in New England, and a great meteor showers in November 12 and 13, 1833.
Prophecies layered time structure.
Most all of the prophecies in the Bible have multiple time layers. The signs of the time for the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, that Jesus told his disciples, as an example, had 2 layers of time, one for the time of Jerusalem, and the other for the time of end of the word. The 7 seals and the 7 trumpets also have double time structure, and a hint was provided where these 2 time layers are folded. that is the words, after this. In Revelation chapter 4 verse 1, after this, was used to start a new period, and in Revelation chapter 7 verse 1, the same term was used again to indicate that the sixth seal is finished, the time has reached to the end of 2300 years and it is time to start a new prophetic cycle. So it has happened in the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation prior to the year 1844. The end of the 2300 years will also happen again after 1844. History will repeat from this dividing point.
Revelation chapter 7, sealing 144,000.
And after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in the foreheads. Revelation chapter 7 verses 1 to 3.
The words after these suggest that it has reached the end of the story. That means it has reached the year 1844, the end of the 2300 years of prophecy, and soon a new cycle of prophecy will start. So we see that the sealing of 144,000 started from the year 1844.
And one of the elders answered, saying unto me, What do these which are arrayed in white robes, and whence came they? And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said to me, These are they which came out of great tribulation, and have washed the robes, and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Revelation chapter 7 verses 13 to 14.
According to the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation, we know that there are 2 different tribulations. The first one is the 1260 years of tribulation, and the other is a time of trouble, such as never was, since there was a nation even to that same time. Written Daniel chapter 12 verse 1. According to the structure of Daniel's prophecy, the second tribulation will come after 1844, and this time of trouble will be much bigger than the 1260 years of tribulation. Therefore it is also showing us that the year 1844 is the time dividing point for the double-layered prophecies. Therefore it is also possible that the sealing of God's people could be applied to the time before and after 1844.
Revelation chapter 8, 7th seal and 7 trumpet.
And when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense, which came with the prayers of the saints, ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. And the angel took the censer, and filled it with fire of the altar, and cast it into the earth. And there were voices, and thunderings, and lightnings, and an earthquake. Revelation chapter 8 verses 1 to 5.
At the time of the 7th seal, in 1844, the prayers of the saints ascended up before God out of the angel's hand, and when the angel took the censer, and filled it with fire of the altar, and cast it into the earth, there were voices, and thunderings, and lightnings, and an earthquake. It was about the space of half an hour from the time of the 7th seal. This space of half an hour is about 7 days, according to the 1-day 1-year formula, and the exact date that the 2300 years of prophecy ended should be on October 22, 1844, according to the calculation of Jewish calendar regarding the Day of Atonement.
If this calculation of the date for the Day of Atonement is correct, then there should be an earthquake occurred on October 29, 1844, 7 days after the October 22nd. But there was no historically significant earthquake happened on that day. Then, was the calculation wrong? To find out the answer, you need to first confirm what you know about the prophecies in Daniel and Revelation. If you are not sure whether the 2,300 years of prophetic time ends in 1844 or not, then it is impossible to find the answer. But if you believe that 2,300 prophetic time ends in 1844, then it is not difficult to find the answer.
If you believe that 1844 was the end of the 2300 years, then you need to look if there was any group of people waiting for the time in 1844. There was only one Christian group waiting at that time, and they believed that the final day is October 22nd. Did they have any prophetic foundation about the data? No, you cannot find any clue what date the 2300 years was started. We can find out which year the decree to rebuild the Jerusalem was issued, but not the exact date. But they realized that the day supposed to be the day of cleansing the sanctuary, according to Daniel chapter 8 verse 14.
And he said unto me, Unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Daniel chapter 8 verse 14. And I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire. And he had in his hand a little book open, and he set his right foot upon the sea, and his left foot on the earth, and cried with a loud voice, as when a lion roareth. And when he had cried, 7 thunders uttered the voices. And when the 7 thunders had uttered the voices, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered, and write them not. Revelation chapter 10 verses 1 to 4.
There was an angel holding a little book, and proclaimed something important thing with a loud voice. So John was about to write what he heard, but he heard a voice from heaven saying, Seal up, write them not. So we can see that something very important message was hidden deliberately to those people who will be living during that time. But verse 7 explains when the hidden message will be revealed.
But in the days of the voice of the 7th angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he hath declared to his servants the prophets. Revelation chapter 10 verse 7.
So it is clear that the mystery of God is related to the hidden message, and on the time of the 7th angel, which is 1844, the purpose of the hidden message will be fulfilled in God's people living at that time.
And I went unto the angel, and said unto him, Give me the little book. And he said unto me, Take it, and eat it up, and it shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in thy mouth sweet as honey. And I took the little book out of the angel's hand, and ate it up, and it was in my mouth sweet as honey, and as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter. And he said unto me, Thou must prophesy again before many peoples, and nations, and tongues, and kings. Revelation chapter 10 verses 9 to 11.
So the book looked sweet and encouraging on the outside, but the inside was bitter and painful, and made those who accepted the book fell, tried and purged. And the angel said, Thou must prophesy again before many peoples, and nations, and tongues, and kings. That means, the contents of the little book is related to the Bible prophetic messages, and the message concerning about the end of the 2300 years was interpreted wrong. That's why the book was sweet first but bitter at the end. So God commanded them to restudy the prophecy that they fell and prophesy again to the world. On this point, the important thing is to know that it was not their fault to misunderstand the prophecy. The real meaning of the prophecy was purposely hidden and sealed up by God. That is why the events of Revelation chapter 8 verse 1 to 5 took place. God wanted to let them know that their prayers were received, and he knows how much they were disappointed. So God sent an earthquake and voices just for them, on the exact date that is prophesied in chapter 8, which is 7 days after October 22nd, October 29, 1844, according to the newsletter by the Adams Sentinel, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, dated on October 29, 1844. There was an earthquake in New York State, just big enough to let people know. God planned all these events and recorded them in the Bible so that we can find out the purpose of God's plan. And by sending the earthquake on October 29, God also confirmed the October 22nd as the correct day for the end of 2300 years.
The 7 trumpets. The first 4 trumpets are consecutive events.
Revelation chapter 8 verse 6 to 12 talked about the first 4 trumpets, and verse 13 introduced the next 3 trumpets. So the first 4 trumpets and the last 3 trumpets are grouped separately to form consecutive events.
How to find the time for the first trumpet.
We could find out at the time of the first seal according to how John received the vision, and we learned that these Bible prophecies have double-layered structure applied to the past and the future from 1844. We can use the same method to find the time for the first trumpet. The first angel sounded half an hour after the 7 seals was open. So we see that if we apply this vision to the past, the starting time of the first trumpet would be later than the start time of the first seal. And if we look over again the prophetic history that we have learned, the Daniel chapter 11 and the 7 seals, we could find out that there is a time gap between the end of the 3rd seal, 400 AD, and first appearance of Clovis of Frank Empire, 486 AD. So the best time period for the first 4 trumpets would be from 400 to 486.
The target of the judgment of the 7 trumpets.
Because the 7 trumpets belong to the 7th seal, the 7 trumpets also related to the same country. The country that the first 4 seals were applied was the Western Roman Empire, so the target of the judgment of the first 4 trumpets will be the Western Roman Empire.
The first trumpet.
The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. Revelation chapter 8 verse 7.
The time that the third seal ended was around 400 AD. Around that time the power that brought the judgment of God to the Western Roman Empire, described here, was Visigoth. The hail and fire are similar to what were poured down to Egypt, so they symbolize the judgment of God, and the hail and fire also suggest that they are from northern, colder regions. The third part is a symbolic term to describe significant amount, not literally exact 1/3 or one of 3 divisions. Some people believe that it might be about how Constantine divided the entire Roman Empire into 3 jurisdictions, Western Rome, Italy, and Eastern Rome, but the attack of Visigoth was not limited to certain regions of Western Roman Empire or Italy, and the term third part used in Revelation chapter 12 verse 4 was not meant to be an exact 1/3.
And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Revelation chapter 12 verse 4. In 401 AD, Alaric I of Visigoth attacked Italy and conquered many cities. In 408 he sieged the Rome first time, but he didn't enter the city and lifted the siege for money. But on August 24, 410 AD, when he sieged the Rome again, he entered the city and destroyed many of the city's great buildings and people. Many citizens were taken captive, including the emperor's sister, Galla.
So the prophecy of the first trumpet was fulfilled. Many part of the Rome was burned, and the third part of the trees, which symbolized the upper-class people of Rome, was taken captive, and many citizens, the green grass, were killed and taken captive.
The second trumpet.
And the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood, and the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. Revelation chapter 8 verses 8 to 9.
The first trumpet was a judgment sent on the earth. The second trumpet is a judgment on waters. The country that attacked Rome through water was Vendel. Vendel was chased down by Huns and later by Roman to the southern coastland of Spain. In 425 AD, Vendel conquers the city of Carthago Spartaria, a coastal town in Spain, and began active navy activities. In 429, Vendel invades the northern Africa and several islands of Roman territories. In 455, Vendel finally conquers Rome, but because Vendel could conquer Rome without fighting, the second trumpet is focused on the war on water. The emperor of Western Roman Empire, Majorian, secretly started to build ships to get back at the Vendels, but it was discovered and the place was attacked and destroyed by Vendel's navy in 461. This battle is called the Battle of Cartagena. And in 461 AD, when the elite forces of the Western and the Eastern Roman navy came to fight with Vendel, at Capon, near Carthago, with 1113 ships and about 100,000 navies, the Vendels successfully destroyed them using a burning ship. As the result, hundreds of Roman ships were sunk at sea and many Roman soldiers were killed. That's why the Bible said that the third part of the sea became blood, and the third part of the ships were destroyed.
The third trumpet.
And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters, because they were made bitter. Revelation chapter 8 verses 10 to 11.
A star fell from heaven into the third part of the rivers and the fountains of waters. The star symbolizes angel. So God sent an angel to judge Rome using waters, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters. So these men died by the polluted water naturally, without going through a war. So we can see that they died by plague. Some assume that it could be about the conflicts between Huns and Rome, but Huns were never able to conquer Western Rome. What kind of epidemic was involved in the decline of the Western Roman Empire? It has been a lingering question, but the development of modern technology has made a breakthrough on this. Please read the following article from the BBC News dated February 17, 2011. But last year, for the first time, a British scientist proved conclusively that the most dangerous type of malaria was a killer in Imperial Rome. The scientist relied on the latest DNA techniques that are revolutionizing the understanding of the role of disease in ancient times. The malarial DNA from a Roman site, dating from around AD 450, is the oldest definite evidence of malaria in history. The finding of malaria was a remarkable and complicated piece of detective work, which spanned the last 10 years. Coluzzi believed that malaria was not a problem at the beginning of the Roman Empire, but had become increasingly serious as the empire declined. CNN reported the following news on December 5, 2016. For the first time, researchers have discovered genomic evidence of malaria in 2,000-year-old human remains from the Roman Empire, according to a new study, with DNA fragments from the teeth of 58 adults and 10 children buried in 3 imperial period Italian cemeteries. Researchers were able to recover the mitochondrial genome to identify the specific malaria species that infected people. Their data confirmed that it was the malaria parasite Plasmodium falciparum, the same one that is spread by mosquitoes today and kills hundreds of thousands of people every year. Symptoms include fever, chills and flu-like illness. Malaria was likely a significant historical pathogen that caused widespread death in ancient Rome, said evolutionary geneticist and study author Hendrik Pointer, director of the Ancient DNA Center at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario. However, Italy is not located on a malaria zone, but malaria emerged as a serious epidemic at the end of the Roman Empire. That shows that epidemic was not from a natural cause, but was a judgment of God. Interestingly enough, according to history, malaria was also a major cause behind the failure of the Huns' expedition to Rome. Malaria region is mainly centered on the marshy equator because mosquitoes breed in wet lands. That is why the Bible expressed this as the waters becoming bitter and many men died of the waters. There was a recording of the outbreak of the Black Death during the time of the Emperor Justinian. It is called the Justinian Black Death, but the Black Death is not a water-based disease. It spreads by rat.
The fourth trumpet.
And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. Revelation chapter 8 verse 12.
God created the sun, moon and stars on the 4th day of the creation, and God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. It suggests that the light God created on the first day of the creation was not a visible light. And one of the reason why God created the sun, moon, and stars are to let us know the changes of time, the day and night. Therefore the expression, the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise shows that the time of the third part is ceased. In other words, the life of the Western Roman Empire is ended. In 476, the Western Roman Empire was overthrown by the Germanic leader Odoacer.
The fifth trumpet.
And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. Revelation chapter 9 verses 1 to 3.
A star, an angel came down from heaven and opened the bottomless pit, and a smoke came out of the pit and darkened the sun and the air. So the smoke is an evil power that shaded the truth, and from the smoke the locusts came out, with the killing power of scorpions.
And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in the foreheads. Unto them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months, and the torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. Revelation chapter 9 verses 4 to 6.
They were commanded to hurt only those people who did not have the seal of God. The grass, plant and tree symbolize all level of people, so this judgment is focused on a certain group of people, not on entire country, and they were commanded not to kill them and just torment them for 5 months. That means, they will not conquer them completely until the end of the given time period.
And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on the heads were as it were crowns like gold, and the faces were as the faces of men. And they had hair as the hair of women, and the teeth were as the teeth of lions. And they had breastplates, as it were breastplates of iron, and the sound of the wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. Revelation chapter 9 verses 7 to 9.
The horse-like locusts suggest that they are mounted troops, and they are wearing something on their heads, but it is not a crown, and these men had long hairs like women. They are surely referring Muslim army. The smoke that shuts the sun and the air describes the Islamic dogma, similar in appearance to that of Christianity, but very different in essence. The name locusts shows that they are from a dry region. The crown-like object on their head refers to turban, and Islam men traditionally grew their hair long. And they had the teeth of lions. Lion in Daniel's prophecy symbolizes Babylon, so the teeth of lion suggests that one day it will become like the lion, conquering the most of the territories of the ancient Babylon. Their army had breastplates that looked like breastplates of iron, so the color and the texture of the material were shining like an iron plate. These special breastplates refer to the mirror armor that Ottoman army used. Mirror armor was a type of cuirass used mainly in Asia, the Middle East and Eastern Europe, including India, Persia, Tibet, Russia and the Ottoman Empire. It literally translates to four mirrors, which is a reflection of how these pieces looked, which resembles four, sometimes more, metal discs or rectangular armor plates. And the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. This is about the Ottoman Turkish phrase, Fırha, translated as strike, the battle cry of the Ottoman army, which is also the origin of the word Ura, a battle cry common in the United States Marine Corps.
And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in the tails, and the power was to hurt men 5 months. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. Revelation chapter 9 verses 10 to 11.
The locusts had tails like scorpions. That means they have two different killing powers, one at the head and one at the tail. We can find this kind of government structure in the Ottomans' system of janissaries. The janissaries were elite infantry units that formed the Ottoman Sultan's household troops, bodyguards and the first modern standing army in Europe. Janissaries were used extensively to garrison fortresses and for siege warfare, which was becoming increasingly important for the Ottoman military. By the early 17th century, janissaries had such prestige and influence that they dominated the government.
The 5 months.
Because the locusts are symbolic objects, the 5 months also a symbolic time period. In the Bible prophecy, a symbolic day is a year. So 5 months are 150 days, and so it is 150 years, and the fifth trumpet described the very beginning of the Ottoman Empire, so the 150 years should start from the year that the Ottoman Empire began, which is July 27, 1299. Some theologians believe that it should start from the year that the Ottoman army had its first battle with Byzantine army, which is the Battle of Bavius, occurred on July 27, 1302, because the fifth and sixth trumpets are the judgment on Byzantine Empire. But that is not important concerning the start year of the 150 years, because no matter when this period begins, 1299 or 1302, the Ottoman army was waging war not only on the Byzantine army, but also on other autonomous regions around the Constantinople during that time. To understand this better, we need to see how the Bible treats the territory of the Ottoman Empire in the sixth trumpet. The region around the river Euphrates was not the part of the Ottoman Empire when the sixth trumpet was sounded at the 15th century, but it was treated as the part of the Ottoman Empire. And even after the end of the Byzantine Empire, the judgment of God was still continuing 300 more years on the territory of the Byzantine Empire. So we can see the Ottoman's territory is treated implicitly, so we should treat the Byzantine territory same way. Therefore, regardless of the time when the Ottoman army had the first battle with the Byzantine army, the start time of the 150 years should be July 27, 1299.
Hurting only those men that have not the seal of God.
Ottoman did not suppress Christians, and they collected less taxes than the Byzantium, so there wasn't much rebellion in the region they conquered. And even after they conquered Constantinople, Ottoman encouraged Christians to move back to Constantinople, with the guarantee of the religious freedom. That's why in the fifth trumpet, Ottoman was not mentioned as a suppressor of Christianity, but just as a force to give judgment to Byzantine. The Sultan of the Ottoman Empire was known for his tolerance of the Christian and Jewish faiths within his dominions, whereas the King of Spain did not tolerate the Protestant faith. The Ottoman Empire was indeed known at that time for its religious tolerance. Various religious refugees, such as the Huguenots, some Anglicans, Quakers, Anabaptists or even Jesuits or Capuchins were able to find refuge at Istanbul and in the Ottoman Empire, where they were given right of residence and worship. Further, the Ottomans supported the Calvinists in Transylvania and Hungary, but also in France.
The sixth trumpet.
And the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar which is before God, saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, Loose the four angels which abound in the great river Euphrates. And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, for to slay the third part of men. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. Revelation chapter 9 verses 13 to 16.
The number of the angels that are bound in the river Euphrates was 4, to suggest that they occupy the entire area around Euphrates. The word thousand is the same word that used in Luke chapter 12 verse 1 as many thousands, so thousand are numerous, and twice of them becomes uncountable. And it is said, for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year. 1 year is 360 days and 1 month is 30 days. If you combine them it becomes 390 days, which is 390 years. And 1 day is 1 year and 1 hour is 15 days, so the total length of an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year becomes 391 years and 15 days. The Ottoman Empire started in July 27, 1299. The 150 years from that time is 1449, and 391 years from 1449 is 1840. And if you add 15 days, it becomes August 11, 1840, so the time that given to the Ottoman Empire expires on August 11, 1840. But the Ottoman Empire was not collapsed on that day, and the year 1840 was just considered as the beginning of the decline of the Ottoman Empire. In 1839, the Ottoman Empire moved to reoccupy lands lost to Muhammad Ali in the First Turco-Egyptian War. The Ottoman Empire invaded Syria, but after suffering a defeat at the Battle of Nezab, appeared on the verge of collapse. On July 1, the Ottoman fleet sailed to Alexandria and surrendered to Muhammad Ali. Britain, Austria and other European nations rushed to intervene and force Egypt into accepting a peace treaty. On November 27, 1840, the Convention of Alexandria took place. The Convention of London of 1840 was a treaty, with the title of Convention for the Pacification of the Levant, signed on July 15, 1840 between the great powers of United Kingdom, Austria, Prussia, Russia on one hand and the Ottoman Empire on the other. The convention lent some support to the Ottoman Empire, which was having difficulties with its Egyptian possessions. Then what did the Bible set the year 1840 as the end of the Ottoman Empire? The reason is because the Bible describes the beginning of the fall, as if it were the completion of the fall. In Daniel chapter 7 verse 26, it said, But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. In Daniel chapter 8 verse 25 it is said, He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. And in Daniel chapter 11 verse 45, it said, Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. All these prophecy treated the beginning of the fall as if it were the completion of the fall. That is why Daniel's prophecy considered the year 538 as the fall of the Ostrogoth, and that is the reason why 1840 was considered as the fall of the Ottoman Empire. The reason why the Bible treats the beginning of the fall as the completion of the fall is to give them the chance to repent and to escape the incoming judgment. God is appealing to the people to come out before it is too late. Revelation chapter 18 verse 2 proclaimed that Babylon is already fallen, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. But in verse 4, God wants his people to come out of her to escape from the judgment. The same grace is given to the people of the Ottoman Empire, to come out of her before it is too late, because it is fallen. August 11, 1840, was the day the Ottoman Empire accepted guarantees from the great powers, and lost its military independence. So it was the day on which the agreement of the London Convention went into effect. And we can see that the sixth seal has the two sides of judgments, one for the Byzantine Empire and the other for the Ottoman Empire.
And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and of jacinth, and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of the mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. By these three was the third part of men killed, by the fire, and by the smoke, and by the brimstone, which issued out of the mouths. For their power is in the mouth and in the tails, for the tails were like unto serpents, and had heads, and with them they do hurt. Revelation chapter 9 verses 17 to 19.
The colors of fire, jacinth, and brimstone were common colors of armor used by the Ottoman soldiers. In the fifth trumpet, the locusts had just the teeth of lion, but now the entire head became lion, which shows that now the Ottoman Empire has occupied most of the regions of Babylonian Empire, including the surrounded area of the river Euphrates. The fire and smoke and brimstone come from blasting gunpowder. Ottoman Empire was one of the three gunpowder empires. The gunpowder empires were the Ottoman, Safavid and Mughal empires. Each of these three empires had considerable military success using the newly developed firearms, especially cannon and small arms, in the course of their empires. But unlike Europe, for example, the introduction of the gunpowder weapons prompted changes well beyond simply army organization. In the fifth trumpet, the locusts had tails like scorpion. Now, the scorpion tail became a head, which means the system of Janissaries is firmly established as an independent power in the government. In the last trumpet, God only let them just hurt for 150 years. In 1422, at the first siege of Constantinople, the Byzantine army successfully defeated the Ottoman army, but now the final judgment time has arrived. On April 6, 1453, the Ottoman army again besieged Constantinople and conquered the city, and that made the end of the Byzantine Empire.
The seventh trumpet.
The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. And the seventh angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven, saying, The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord, and of his Christ, and he shall reign for ever and ever. And the 24 elders, which sat before God on the seats, fell upon their faces, and worshipped God, saying, We give thee thanks, O Lord God Almighty, which art, and wast, and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee thy great power, and hast reigned. And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. Revelation chapter 11 verses 14 to 18.
The year that the seventh trumpet sounded was 1844. From that time the judgment for the dead began, and soon the people of God will be rewarded. And, finally, the evil people will be destroyed.
And the temple of God was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament, and there were lightnings, and voices, and thunderings, and an earthquake, and great hail. Revelation chapter 11 verse 19.
After that, the temple of God was opened in heaven, and the ark of his testament was revealed to the world. That shows that God's judgment will be based on the 10 Commandments, and that is why the Satan went to make war with the people who keep the commandments of God. Revelation 12:17.